Interestingly, the second biggest and almost as big is actually our diet. So it's a huge, huge part of what contributes to cancer.
Meet Dr. Jason Fung, a renowned Canadian nephrologist who has transformed our understanding of metabolic health, weight loss, and chronic diseases like cancer. Through his research, books, and lectures, he challenges conventional medical beliefs by revealing the powerful connection between diet, metabolism, and disease prevention. He believes that food isn't just fuel, it's a key factor in either healing the body or feeding illness. In this video, Dr. Fung will uncover 5 foods that you eat every day. Foods that science links to cancer risk. Removing these from your diet could significantly lower your chances of developing cancer and provide an additional layer of protection against this deadly disease. But that's not all. By the end of this video, we'll also share Dr. Fung's expert strategy to minimize cancer risk with diet. Before we dive into the foods that cause cancer, let's first understand how cancer navigates through our body.
In the 90s, so I went to medical school in the 90s, we talked about cancer, and people had this idea that it was this genetic disease. Um, it was actually not until 2003 when the first kind of convincing evidence came out that, hey, cancer is an obesity related disease. And it turns out that it was a huge, huge, huge part of cancer. That is, if you look at the causes of cancer, sort of.
Dr. Jason Fung highlights that there is a direct link between cancer and obesity. Excess fat, particularly visceral fat, triggers chronic inflammation, creating an internal environment that promotes cancer growth. Obesity also disrupts hormonal balance, leading to higher levels of insulin and estrogen, both of which accelerate cancer cell multiplication.
Turns out that insulin is a major, major growth factor as well. And that is the link to a lot of these cancers. So, breast cancer and colorectal cancer being the two most prominent obesity related cancers, but also pancreatic and liver and so on. So, hyperinsulinemia turns out to play a sort of huge role in those as well. And that's sort of linked through several different growth stimulating mechanisms.
Insulin, responsible for regulating blood sugar, can act as a growth stimulant, encouraging cancer cells to spread rapidly. And because cancer cells thrive on glucose, elevated insulin levels only fuel their growth further, making blood sugar regulation a critical factor in cancer prevention. But before we continue, this content is provided for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider with any questions about your health or medical condition. Do not disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something you have read here. Now that we understand the risks, let's explore the everyday foods that science says you should stop eating if you want to prevent cancer.
And the sugar is very, very dangerous to weight gain. And it's more than simply the amount of carbohydrates.
Sugar is one of the biggest culprits behind cancer growth, and most people consume far more of it than they realize. It doesn't just sweeten your coffee. It lurks in processed foods, sodas, pastries, cereals, and even so-called healthy snacks like granola bars. When you consume sugar, your body rapidly converts it into glucose, causing a spike in blood sugar levels. This triggers the release of insulin, a hormone that helps store glucose, but also acts as a growth factor for cells, including cancer cells. Chronically high insulin levels lead to insulin resistance, which fuels inflammation and oxidative stress, creating an environment where cancer thrives. Additionally, sugar increases insulin-like growth factor 1, which promotes uncontrolled cell division and tumor growth. Since cancer cells rely heavily on glucose for energy, a high sugar diet directly accelerates their spread and survival. Shockingly, studies show that the average person consumes 17 teaspoons of added sugar per day, far exceeding the recommended limit. And with cancer rates skyrocketing, is it really a coincidence? The key problem is insulin resistance. Statistical data supports this alarming connection between sugar and cancer. A large-scale study found that obese individuals were up to 50% more likely to develop cancer than those of normal weight, and much of this risk is driven by insulin and glucose metabolism.
Sort of sugar is probably one of the very, very important things that we really need to lower because that really supports it. And it gets to how cancer develops.
Cutting sugar lowers inflammation, insulin spikes, and cancer risk. Instead of processed sugar, opt for natural sweeteners like monk fruit or stevia. Choose whole foods like fruits that provide fiber to slow sugar absorption. Eliminating sugar isn't just about weight loss, it's about survival. But sugar isn't the only hidden danger. What if I told you that a staple in most diets, white bread, acts almost the same way in your body? White bread, along with other refined grains like bagels, pasta, and tortillas, is stripped of fiber and nutrients during processing. What's left is a fast-digesting carb that spikes blood sugar just as quickly as pure sugar.
Those highly refined carbohydrates are going to spike up your glucose, which is going to spike up your insulin. And then, because the high insulin just takes all that energy and sucks it into storage, there's no energy left for you.
When you eat white bread, your body quickly breaks it down into glucose, causing a rapid spike in blood sugar levels. This leads to a surge in insulin, which promotes fat storage, inflammation, and cell growth, including cancerous cells. Over time, frequent insulin spikes contribute to insulin resistance, forcing the body to produce even more insulin and insulin-like growth, factor 1. Additionally, high glycemic index foods like white bread increase oxidative stress and chronic inflammation, creating the perfect environment for cancer cells to multiply and spread. According to a study, people who consume high amounts of refined carbohydrates have a 49% higher risk of lung cancer, even if they don't smoke. The cancer risk comes from high glycemic index foods, which cause rapid blood sugar spikes. Research found that high GI diets increase levels of insulin, which promote cancer cell growth, particularly in breast and colon cancers. Switching to whole grain or sprouted bread helps slow glucose absorption and keeps insulin levels steady. Better yet, opt for low-carb alternatives like almond or coconut flour bread. Making this simple swap can dramatically lower cancer risk and improve metabolic health. Before we move on, if you are looking to dive deeper into the worst foods that feed cancer, be sure to subscribe to the Vitazen Health newsletter linked below. Each week, we share expert-backed tips, delicious recipes, and actionable steps to help you live longer and feel your best delivered right to your inbox. Imagine what happens when you drink a can of soda, essentially pure liquid sugar. Sodas and sugary drinks are some of the worst offenders when it comes to feeding cancer cells. They're packed with high fructose corn syrup, a form of sugar that's absorbed almost instantly into the bloodstream. This causes an extreme spike in blood sugar and insulin, creating the perfect conditions for cancer growth. But it doesn't stop there. Many sodas contain caramel coloring, which has been linked to 4-methylamidazole, a potential carcinogen. And don't be fooled by diet sodas. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame may still trigger metabolic disruptions linked to cancer.
Those highly refined carbohydrates are going to spike up your glucose, which is going to spike up your insulin. And then, because the high insulin just takes all that energy and sucks it into storage, there's no energy left for you.
The numbers are shocking. Research have found that drinking 2 or more sodas per day increases the risk of mortality, including from cancer, by 17%. Another study found that high fructose corn syrup accelerates tumor growth, particularly in colorectal cancer. The researchers discovered that fructose uniquely fuels cancer cells, making sodas a direct contributor to cancer development. Eliminating sodas reduces insulin spikes, inflammation, and exposure to harmful chemicals. Swap them for sparkling water with lemon, herbal teas, or unsweetened natural drinks. Protecting your health doesn't mean sacrificing taste, it just means choosing wisely. If sodas silently fuel cancer with sugar, vegetable oils attack from a different angle, through chronic inflammation.
So in 1989, they had already were having evidence that eating a lot of these vegetable oils was actually very, very harmful. And a reanalysis by Ramsden in 2013 showed the same thing. If you actually look at all the polyunsaturated fatty acid studies and then break them down according to whether or not they contain omega-3s or omega-6s, because both are polyunsaturated, what you find in the top part there is that if you look at studies that primarily increase omega-6 fatty acids, so vegetable oils, you have an increased mortality.
Vegetable oils like soybean, corn, canola, and sunflower oil are everywhere, in fried foods, salad dressings, mayonnaise, margarine, and processed snacks. While marketed as heart-healthy, these oils are anything but healthy. Well, they are loaded with omega-6 fatty acids, which, in excess, trigger chronic inflammation, a key driver of cancer. Worse, when heated, they release toxic compounds called aldehydes, which have been linked to DNA damage and tumor growth. According to research, the consumption of vegetable oils has increased 1,000-fold in the last century, paralleling the rise in chronic diseases, including cancer. A study found that oxidized vegetable oils promote oxidative stress and inflammation, both of which contribute to cancer progression. Another study confirmed that excessive omega-6 intake can stimulate tumor formation. Avoiding vegetable oils reduces inflammation and lowers cancer risk. Instead, cook with extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, or grass-fed butter, which are far more stable at high temperatures. And ditching these industrial oils is one of the simplest yet most powerful dietary changes you can make. Another cancer-causing food, as per Dr. Jason Fung, is processed meats. Introduce something even more dangerous: direct carcinogens.
People talk about meat all the time, but it's like there's a big difference between bologna and, grass-finished beef sort of thing. There's a huge difference because one is jam-packed full of chemicals and other crap, and one is just beef, right? And people have been eating beef for thousands of years.
Sausages, bacon, hot dogs, deli meats, and even some cured meats contain nitrites and nitrates, preservatives that help maintain color and extend shelf life. But when these compounds are exposed to high heat, they transform into nitrosamines that are known carcinogens. Additionally, smoking and curing these meats generate polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines, both of which have been linked to cancer. The numbers are alarming. The World Health Organization has classified processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen, the same category as smoking. Studies suggest that eating just 50 grams of processed meat daily increases colorectal cancer risk by 18%. Another study analyzed data from over 500,000 people and found that regular consumption of processed meats was strongly linked to increased cancer risk, particularly colorectal and stomach cancer. The nitrosamines in these meats cause DNA mutations, leading to the uncontrolled cell growth seen in cancer. To cut your cancer risk, eliminate or significantly reduce processed meats. Instead, choose fresh, unprocessed meats like grass-fed beef, organic chicken, or wild-caught fish. For flavor without the risk, try herbs, spices, and natural marinades instead of smoked or cured options. Your body will thank you for making the switch. Finally, let's explore Dr. Fung's secret strategies that can help us fight and prevent various diseases like cancer.
At risk of cancer, at risk of heart disease, at risk of strokes, at risk of blindness, at risk of kidney disease, nerve damage, infections. All these people you can fix just by changing their diet, either cutting down the carbohydrates or using intermittent fasting. And it's free. And anybody can do it.
According to Dr. Fung, intermittent fasting is one of the most powerful tools to reduce cancer risk by targeting its root causes: insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and abnormal cell growth. Unlike traditional dieting, intermittent fasting isn't about reducing calories, but rather about when you eat. By extending the period between meals, fasting helps lower insulin levels, starve cancer cells of glucose, and activate the body's natural defense mechanisms. Dr. Fung explains that prolonged periods without food trigger autophagy, preventing mutated cells from multiplying. This natural cleansing mechanism is crucial in stopping the early stages of cancer development. Another major benefit of fasting is insulin regulation. When you fast, insulin levels drop, IGF-1 decreases, and cancer cells lose their primary fuel source, glucose. Additionally, intermittent fasting reduces chronic inflammation, which is a major driver of cancer. By eliminating constant spikes in blood sugar and insulin, fasting helps lower oxidative stress and prevent DNA damage. Dr. Fung suggests that combining intermittent fasting with a low-carb, whole food diet can further enhance its protective effects. So, that is all for the most common foods that are linked to cancer. However, even by avoiding these foods may not be enough. Our body needs a certain minerals and vitamins whose deficiency can also lead to chronic diseases. So, get ready for the next video to understand what all minerals you need daily to keep your body in a balanced state.